Well, good afternoon and welcome. I'm Michael McGinnis, and on behalf of the Institute of Medicine and the National Academies, it's my privilege to represent my colleagues Harvey Feinberg and Andy Pope in welcoming each of you to today's meeting, which we anticipate will provide a very robust discussion, if the attendees and the speakers are any indication at all, about large simple trials and knowledge generation for continuous learning healthcare. In many ways, the meeting this afternoon and tomorrow is right in the sweet spot of the Academy's origin. We were founded 150 years ago. Next year is our sesquicentennial. To identify ways in which science could be improved, accelerated, and applied in the changing context of the times. And that's, of course, precisely the mission of this meeting, to look at the ways our evolving infrastructure and insights might best be applied to speed learning about what works best for whom, under what circumstances. The workshop was on our radar screen for some time, but it was given a boost by a specific request from NIH Director Francis Collins, likely at the suggestion of Mike Lauer. Mike is somewhere here, and he can either fess up or not to the deed. But it's also obviously of keen importance to FDA, to AHRQ, to the VA, to DOD, CMS, PCORI, indeed, virtually all the stakeholders who are interested in advancement of clinical science. Befitting the scope, the workshop is co-convened by two Academy components. The Forum on Drug Discovery, Development, and Translation, which is co-chaired by Jeff Drazen and Steve Golson, and the Roundtable on Value in Science-Driven Healthcare's Clinical Effectiveness Research Innovation Collaborative, which is co-chaired by Ralph Horowitz and Rich Platt, both of whom are here today and will be in the program. The IOM senior program officers who direct those efforts respectively are Ann Claiborne and Claudia Grossman. They're probably in the back of the room, or there's Ann over there. Along with their IOM colleagues, Rebecca English and Julia Sanders have worked with a really sterling planning committee to put the agenda together. That planning committee is co-chaired by my colleagues here at the front of the room, Rick Kuntz from Medtronic and Dave Demetz from the University of Wisconsin. The full list of the planning committee members you'll see at the end of your agenda. I encourage you to take a quick look at it. Before I turn the floor over to Dave and Rick, please join us in thanking them and all of the staff for their work. Dave, I believe you're up first.
Okay, well, I just want to echo the comments that have just been made from the staff. It's been a well-run and organized planning process, and we're looking forward to the day and a half that have been planned. So please, as the conference goes on, to please have your questions and raise them at the appropriate time. But I'm going to let Rick make some introductory comments, and then we'll get launched into the first session.
Thanks, Dave. Good morning, everybody, or afternoon. It has been a real pleasure working with the planning committee over the last 5 or 6 months, and especially working with Claudia and Ann, who've just done an outstanding job. It's been really fun. I want to briefly review the high-level overview of what we're going to do the next day and a half. Over this time, we will explore the accelerating use of large, simple trials, we'll refer to as LSTs, to improve the speed and particularly the knowledge generation for medical decision-making, medical product development. We want to pay particular attention to facilitate the potential for this use with EHRs, electronic health records. We want to consider concepts of LST design, examples of successful LSTs, and the infrastructure needed to build the capacity to do LSTs as a routine function of care. and this is an ambitious goal, obviously. We want to identify structural, cultural, and regulatory barriers hindering the development of an enhanced LST capacity, discuss the needs and strategies in building a public demand for and participation in LSTs. And this is obviously going to be a disruptive, ambitious goal to change how healthcare is administered. We want to also suggest some near-term strategies for accelerating progress in the uptake of LSTs, especially with respect to the United States. Today, we're going to have a few sessions that deal mainly with a brief introduction to LSTs, including a vision of the LSTs as part of the learning healthcare system. Highlight 4 examples of LSTs, each example of a different approach and emphasis about LSTs and how they can be applied, and take on issues from the perspectives of 3 crucial partners in LSTs, that is, the new stakeholder engagements of patients, payers, and clinicians in healthcare systems. Tomorrow, we'll dive in a little deeper into these subjects, and we'll go into the needs and challenges in the areas of infrastructure and policy, and both from medical, ethical, and privacy perspectives, as well as part of the medical products and regulatory pathway. A keynote presentation on a similar-minded effort will be presented from the UK. That'll be very exciting. And finally, a panel discussion with a variety of stakeholder perspectives will top off the day with that keynote perspective. And with that, I'll hand it back over to Dave.
Thank you. Is this, you pick up my voice? Okay. Yeah. Well, before I get into the first session, I want to take care of a few housekeeping details. First of all, we're going to take a break at about 3:15 and try to adjourn at 5. We don't want to wear you out the first day. We've got a whole day tomorrow. The workshop is being webcast live, so that as we get into the question Q&A part, we'll want to make sure that we use the microphones and identify ourselves when you ask questions, so those around the country who are tuning in can understand who is asking the questions. If you're here, please find a mic, or there's a roving mic or 2 that will find you if you have a question. And again, identify yourself in the question. The slides that are being presented today will eventually be available to all those using an IOM website, probably in a week or 2. And there's biographies in your folders about those who are speaking, so you can learn more about them if you want. And a final comment is, I have to remind myself, so I wrote the note, is please turn off your cell phones, or at least put them on the buzzer mode, so we don't are disruptive to the speakers. So I think that's the major housekeeping details that I wanted to bring to your attention. And so I will now shift to the first session. And I don't know whether you have my slides up there or not, but we can. I can try to advance them if there is. Yeah. So in the first session here, we're going to talk about a little bit setting the stage. We believe that the randomized clinical trial is still the best methodology for evaluating new interventions, whether it's a drug, device, procedure, or anything else. I'm happy to debate anywhere, anytime, anyone who wants to challenge that. And it's not the only tool, but I think it's the best tool. We all know trials are becoming larger, more global for sure, more expensive, and we could have a whole workshop just on that alone. But that's the fact of life. I think we know pretty well how to do large, complex trials. We've proven that over and over again. I think we'll hear that we actually know how to do large, simple trials. We just need to do more of them, but we know how to do them. There's no excuse for that. What I think we are learning how to do is how to use the electronic health record, which most medical systems have in place in some way or other, and certainly to use the CTSA network. That's the Clinical Translational Science Awards network of 60-some clinics, medical centers around the country, have been engaged in this activity, and I would say we're still in a state of learning and a state of evolution. But now the challenge before us, I think, which is the session of today, is how to take advantage of this electronic health record to do large, simple trials, to reduce the costs and increasing the efficiency. We have probably the most inefficient system we can imagine. We have electronic health record systems. We print out the data, then we copy it and enter it into a case report form, whether it's electronic or paper, and then we send out people to check that we've copied it right. How in the world could you have a more inefficient, expensive system than that? And furthermore, as we'll hear, most of the data we collect we never use. We had a good reason maybe for collecting it, although I'm not so sure, but the fact is we hardly ever use all that data that we collect and scrub so carefully. So we have a great challenge in front of us, and one that I think that is very timely. As Michael said, this is the real sweet spot. So it's great timing to have this discussion.